everyone. Are you okay? I hope so. Take your pen, pencils, and notebooks. We are about to start another English class in this program, Aprender e Estudar em Casa. I am teacher Perpetua Verissimo. Remember me? Okay, we are still on preventing the COVID-19, so don't forget, wear your mask, clean your hands, and keep safe distancing. Today's topic is something really interesting and important. So let's look at our language objectives for today's class. We're going to talk about volunteering, its definition and importance, giving essential and extra information about someone or something. We're going to learn about defining and non-defining relative clauses. To start, what is volunteering? Volunteering means giving your time and abilities to aid others, usually a non-profit organization, without the want of financial compensation. Put simple, volunteering is a service to your community. People from youth to older adulthood who are engaged in volunteering are called volunteers. What are the advantages of volunteering? The goods of volunteering are: you will be able to meet new people and develop lasting relationships. It will increase your happiness and better your mental health. Possibly you are going to learn new skills and increase your brain function and self-esteem. For sure, you are going to gain some work experience. It is going to decrease your stress and accrue the health benefits. Do good in the world and help make a difference. So far, you have seen why is it important to volunteer. What things should you consider when searching for your volunteer opportunity? In order to make it possible, you should consider your time. How much time you can give. When volunteering as a part of a team, you should make sure you can commit the time you are promising. Your physical limitations. Also consider your physical capabilities. Be honest with yourself about what you are comfortable with accomplishing. Your skill set. Another thing to mull over is what kind of skills you already possess. What skills or experience could be helpful to the nonprofit you are working with? Your interests. Next, think about where your interests lie and what kind of field would you want to explore. So these are the things you should consider in order to do a good volunteer work. What activities are possible to do while volunteering? There are some common activities that many volunteers do. Try to do this activity. Read them and match with the pictures. Look at the pictures and try to match them. The activities we have there are collecting, preparing and distributing food, fundraising, cleaning campaign, tutoring, teaching, collecting, making and distributing clothing, engaging in music or another form of performance, coaching, supervising sport teams, providing medical care. Take some minutes to do it. I believe you could do it right. Let's do the correction. The first picture we have there is, yes, collecting, preparing, and distributing food. The second picture is tutoring, teaching. The third one is cleaning campaign. And I believe you have had opportunities to participate in some cleaning campaign. The fourth picture we have fundraising. And fundraising nowadays is very common, especially on Facebook, that many people post to help others, asking people to donate money to help others go on treatment. The next one we have collecting, making, and distributing clothing. And yes, of course, coaching, supervising sport teams. The next picture, providing medical care. And the last one, engaging in music or another form of performance. These are some activities, the most common ones you can do as a volunteer. And do you know that it's possible to volunteer in Cape Verde? Of course, you might know this. You can be a volunteer in the Aldeias Infantis SOS, also the Red Cross in Cabo Verde. You can participate in the biodiversity project in Sal Island. There is also in the other islands that help protect the turtles. You can also search for more opportunities in the page of Programa Nacional de Voluntariado on Facebook. Or you can just join your community association, especially during holidays. You can help doing some volunteer work, of course, following the precautions to prevent COVID-19. Now, I would like you to notice these sentences. Pay attention here. Sentence A, we have, she is one of the volunteers who works with children in Aldeia SOS. Sara, whose mother has done volunteering work for more than 10 years, is the manager of our community association. As you can see, the words in bold are the relative pronouns that we have already studied. What about the clause that is underlined? How do we call them? Let's see now. The first one we call defining relative clauses. What are defining relative clauses? Defining relative clauses are used to give essential information about someone or something. Information that we need in order to understand what or who is being referred to. A defining relative clause usually comes immediately after the noun it describes. We usually use a relative pronoun, example, who, that, which, whose, and whom, to introduce a defining relative clauses. We have two examples there. In the examples, the relative clause is in bold, and the person or thing being referred to is underlined. They are the people who want to buy our house. Here are some cells which have been affected. So, some cells is the noun being referred to. Which have been affected is our relative clauses. But pay attention, when we are using defining relative clauses, we normally don't use commas. There are more about defining relative clauses. Subject or object. The relative pronoun can define the subject or the object of a verb. They are the people who or that bought our house. The people bought our house. The people is the subject of the sentence. They did the action. They are the subject. So who is replacing the subject? They are the people who that she met at John's party. She met the people. The people is the object. Now, let's see a little more on this. Sometimes it is possible to omit the relative pronoun. which means not to use it in a relative clause. When is that possible? We often leave out the relative pronoun when it is the object of the verb. They are the people she met at John's party. Here are some cells the researcher has identified. As you can see, the people and the cells are the object of the sentence, so that's why we omit the relative pronoun. To continue, nouns and pronouns in relative clauses. When the relative pronoun is the subject of the relative clause, we don't use another personal pronoun or noun in the relative clause because the subject is the same. In the example, we can see, she's the lady who lent me her phone. Who is the subject of the relative clause, so we don't need the personal pronoun she. When the relative pronoun is the object of the relative clause, we don't use another personal pronoun or noun in the relative clause because the object is the same. For example, we had a lovely meal at the place which Phil recommended, which is the object of the relative clause, so we don't need the personal pronoun it. We know that Phil recommended the place, it. But as we already have the relative pronoun, we don't need it, we leave it out. Now, what about the non-defining relative clauses? What do you think? The non-defining relative clauses give extra information about the person or thing. It is not necessary information. We don't need it to understand who or what is being referred to. We always use a relative pronoun, who, which, whose, or whom, to introduce a non-defining relative clause. In the example, the relative clause is in bold, and the person or thing being referred to is underlined. Alice, who works in Brussels and London ever since leaving Edinburgh, will be starting a teaching course in autumn. So as you can see, the information between brackets in bold, it's an extra information. Actually, we don't really need it to understand the sentence. We just use it to give additional information. Let's move on with the non-defining relative clauses. Pay attention. We don't use that to introduce a non-defining relative clause, especially when we are referring to people. Alan, who scored 3 goals in the first game, was the only player to perform well. In terms of punctuation, in writing, we use commas around non-defining relative clauses. And when you speak in spoken English, we often pause the beginning and the end of the clause. For example, and this woman, who I'd never met before, came up and spoke to me. So far, so good? I hope so. We have seen about defining and non-defining relative clauses. Let's do some practice. Exercise A. Are these clauses defining or non-defining? Number 1, this is the car my father has bought for me. Number 2, Queen Elizabeth, who is 95, has been on the throne for just over 69 years. 3, the studio I just rented is near my house. 4, Olivia Rodrigo, whose first single, Driver's License, is at the top of the charts, is only 18. 5, this is the officer that arrested the thief. Take a minute to do it. Let's correct it then, but I'm quite sure you did it right. So let's see, number 1, this is the car my father has bought for me. My father has bought for me is a defining relative clause. Number 2, Queen Elizabeth, who is 95, has been in the throne for just over 69 years. Who is 95? It is a non-defining relative clause. Number 3, the studio I just rented is near my house. I just rented is a defining relative clause. Number 4, Olivia Rodrigo, whose first single, driver's license, is at the top of the charts, is only 18. Whose first single, driver's license, is at the top of the chart is a non-defining, correct? And number 5, this is the officer that arrested the thief. That arrested the thief is a defining relative clause. Well then, it's time for our homework. And for homework today, what do we have? Look at the board and tell me. So, use that, who, which, or whose to complete the sentences. Add commas where is necessary. Number 1, Mr. Lopes' reputation is so good, comes to help us. Number 2, what have you done with the pen? I left on the table. 3, I delivered the keys to Maria, gave them to Marco. 4, his wife is an architect, designed their new house. Remember that in the defining relative clauses, we don't use commas. In non-defining, we do use commas. What did we learn today? Remember? Of course you do. Let's summarize our lesson. Today, we talked about volunteering and its importance. We also learned to distinguish from defining and non-defining relative clauses. And this lesson was based on the dictionary, the Cambridge Dictionary, and also on the site broassembly.com. Why volunteer? So, this was another class in the program Aprender and Estudar em Casa. I really appreciate your attendance, your collaboration, so thank you very much. And I really hope to see you the next time, next class, okay? Have a nice day.